Okay, hey, this is Red Ben. It is Thursday, April 21st. I am doing a review of NQ. Um, this is currently the 30 tick chart, so a larger range to get through time a little bit more quickly. And then we're going to switch to the 24 range tick chart when we want to see if there's an actual trade to participate in. Um, if we went through this one at a time, it would take a long, long, long time. But I just want to show you guys where you could have participated today, and also some of the mistakes that I made, and maybe some of you made as well, because the action was pretty one-sided, and I would say like relatively unexpected. There wasn't, as far as I know, like a big headline or anything like that that caused basically like a 2% drop. Um, and Yeah, when it starts to sell and then it just keeps selling, or in the other direction when it traps underneath the low or whatever and just goes and goes and goes higher, uh, like what to do with that is honestly a lot harder than trading a more balanced market. In my opinion, I find the trend days especially hard, um, because it's just you always feel like you're one step behind. So let's just look over the algo and see what we could have found. Um, I know there's a lot of symbols and colors and lines and stuff like that, and I don't want to take the time to go through every one of them. I've made a video recently of the orange colored bars, the red dots, and then the red candle outlines, as well as the green candle outlines and green dots. So I'm gonna assume that if you're watching this, that you probably already watched that. But if not, like, go check that out because it explains in detail like how they work. I'm gonna use them in some trade examples today, and if it totally is confusing, you probably need to watch another video. All the other symbols, including the pink and the purple, which is no supply, no demand bars, and then the stars, which are white and yellow, and then the triangles, the white and red triangles. Red is facing down like this. Those are all from the TradeNPerform room, Simon's Algo. Uh, and then the other thing that comes from Simon's Algo are these dots here. The blue and the yellow are divergence inside the bar. So with the exception of divergence, so if we're just talking about the stars and the white triangles going up, and then the yellow stars and the red triangles going down, those two are both showing signs of aggression. Okay. The purple up here and down here, see how they're facing the opposite direction from the bar? This bar closed bull, but the purple triangle underneath it's pointing down. And then this bar closed bear, and the purple triangle's facing up. Those are what Simon calls power bars, and those are going to be your swing high, swing low, right? So I don't have a good example of this right now, but I'm going to make a video that breaks some of this down a little bit further. But it's important to understand that these little triangles, they don't show up live. All the rest of the algos show up right away. These you need to put in another two candles before they show up. But then once they show up, they never disappear. So once they're confirmed, they stay there. But the idea is you can use the edges of these power bars, like this one would be the high of this, or the high of this, or the high of this, to know that bulls, if we start trading and develop volume above that, like here, we're developing volume above this power bar, right? And once you put in this sign of aggression, like a white star, you'd now be able to anticipate that we might be going higher because the power bar showed a swing high heading lower, yet the market traded above it and pushed with aggression, despite some buyers getting absorbed. So that right there is like, okay, well, there's an opportunity to buy if you were trading overnight. This was at 2 in the morning Central Time. So, but I just, it's important to see that the stars and the triangles act very similarly because they introduce opportunities for or like a sign of aggression, whereas the purple power bar triangles are just structural. They show me where to pay attention. So like here, for instance, this low, if we take that out, of course we don't. Okay, so this high, if when we take that out, which is here, and we establish volume above it, which is that little yellow line or the yellow dash, once that happens, what generally happens next is you retest this range or an aggressive seller and then lift off to the upside. So that's just like normal market theory. Once you break over a swing high and hold it and put volume above swing high, you're going to go higher generally. Same exact thing on like a Renko chart. Even though we're so zoomed in, all of those theories still apply. So if you're seeing these purple triangles and getting confused when I talk about down triangles or up triangles, these, I know they're in the shape of a triangle, but that's not what I'm talking about. Those are the swing highs and swing lows, which, like I said, Simon calls power bars. So when I say something about triangles, I'm talking about the white triangles pointing up and the red triangles pointing down, which are signs of aggression. The divergence dots, the blue and the yellow dots, right, here's a yellow one, is a sign that there are competing forces in that bar. And so it's not a sign of aggression until you get beyond it. Once you trade beyond it, you can then like buy a pullback like this. See how this becomes a pivot? This one didn't have an opportunity. It just went. This is the only pivot it had. Let me find another one. So like this. Okay, so the yellow on its own might not mean much, but once you get some aggression, like a star, the market's trying to push lower with trapped buyers up here who tried to push higher in that bar with the yellow dot. But once we clear him, see this is the high of that bar, once we clear him, just like the power bars, and we start putting in signs of aggression up here, like this triangle, well, now those buyers that were trapped are now released, and now you don't really have to go down there anymore. The auction's finished that direction, otherwise they'd still be trapped. So those are used a little bit differently. But the stars and the triangles are primarily just signs of aggression. You can think about them that way, and simplifying it kind of hopefully makes it easier to understand. So overnight, wait, this is already the morning. So overnight, we lifted out of this blue area is is Wednesday's RTH point of control. So we pulled back structurally. We pulled back into it and bounced overnight, right? And then opened higher. This brown or whatever that is, orange, is the previous day. So Tuesdays, or it could even be Mondays, point of control. It's a previous day's point of control that's still on this chart in case it acts as support or resistance. We pulled back into that previous point of control as well and bounced. So when we opened, actually we opened here. So the gap itself started from down. Here's the close on Wednesday, and then sideways to higher, and we open here at 8:30 as we push higher, right? So keep in mind all of these sellers got trapped here, and during the open, which was mighty fast, right? You can look at the very bottom. Oh yeah, my arrow doesn't go that far, but this here is 8:31. This is 8:34. So this little rip happened in like 3 minutes. So it's important to keep that in mind. If you look at it on a faster time frame, it unfortunately doesn't look much different because it's literally that fast, right? 8:30 to 8:31 is like all of this happened in 1 minute. So we just call this open drive higher, right? We got a little sign of aggression here. It happened to be at the right location, trapping all of these shorts, and they just lifted it. They tried to push down a little bit, but no one really, like you can see this divergence dot says that somebody shorted down here or sold, maybe took profits, but the market didn't care. It just kept going. And so that's a sign that this becomes single prints, and these should hold on a retest. And when they don't, we need to pay attention. So let's make this one yellow, and put a yellow line at where the single prints would begin. And again, I'm referring to the overnight action high, right? ETH high, and then the breakout above it, right at the open. So if we are in trend day up, and this open drive higher just continues or goes sideways and then continues, what you're going to get is the midpoint of this is going to hold, VWAP is going to hold, and you're not going to certainly retrace back to the open. That would be very unusual. The orange line here is 3 times the variance of VWAP. When you're inside of it, right? When you're still closer, when you're not here's VWAP itself, and then here's 3 times that distance. So when the variance of VWAP, when you're inside of the 3x of that, and you're not establishing volume above it, like maybe you get above it, but you can't really get going above it, you generally get sideways rotations. Well, that changes when you establish volume above it. So see this? Clearly, the yellow line is the volume point of control of the bars. So clearly we've established some volume above that orange line. So at that point, I know my rules say I cannot short. Even if I get into a location that I think should have sellers, I cannot sell there. I can take profits, but I can't sell. And then when it comes to buying, I can now be much more aggressive buying retests of that level. This or this one. If I'm bullish, that is a strategy, right? It's a very aggressive strategy, but it's a strategy that I'm allowed to do if I think it's going to stay bullish. When we are in trend day up, what generally happens is we spend a lot of time near that, but most of it above it, which sounds crazy. Like you rarely get back to VWAP during trend day up, and when you do, it acts as support. So a lot of the time is spent doing this. And these are usually opportunities to look for buys. But once it pulls back inside of it like this, and then if it comes up and it tests it and it can't break through it, kind of like this, right? If I got this action after getting outside of it, I'm going to expect a VWAP test in general. So what do we do? So 7 minutes into the open, we start going sideways. This was a significant level on the daily chart. It was near previous highs from, I think it's like the 13th. Let me double check that's right. Nope, from yesterday and the 13th. Yesterday and the 13th. We did not reach those highs, but we reached the voodoo range level, 14,271.50, and we struggled to put any real volume above it. So see how we're probing above it, but every time we probe above it, we get like sellers attacking it with aggression, right? The stars. So this is my first short on the 24 tick, but I can't take it. I'm not allowed to take this. It is a valid short. It's just against my rules because we've established volume above the 3x variance of VWAP. So if I saw this signal anywhere else where I get a star down, some sideways motion, test above the star, and immediately come back and give me another sign of aggression, like a star or a triangle or a yellow speed bar is the other one, this one, also a sign of aggression to the downside. The opposite of that is a blue speed bar, which looks like this. Again, it's just a sign of aggression. They're all pretty much the same. Because this happened up here, I can't take that short. And the reason I can't take it isn't because it doesn't work. It's because for that to work often enough to pay me to take the risk of that trade, I need it to sometimes cascade lower. And my research has shown that once we've gotten above that 3x level, the pullbacks are going to get bought the first time. And then I should just wait until it fails to get here before I really consider shorting it. I can definitely sell longs here though. So if I longed this pullback and I get this short signal, even though I'm above the 3x variance of VWAP, I can sell it there. It's a great place to sell. It's just not a great place to sell expecting a huge pullback or to take out the low like it did today. So come back to the midpoint. of the Buddha range, and then make another attempt to come higher. We get another star. This one's not quite positioned correctly. It would have to be up here for me to take it short, but it's it would be an aggressive short, but it's not a short I personally take. Especially after open drive higher, I'm really not even thinking about shorting at this point, unless we get that test and rejection up at the 3x VWAP line, or if I get a high odds setup, which I will show you if one comes up. And I don't see it yet. So this orange bar by itself, just like this one, is not, it's a sign of absorption, but it's not a sell signal yet because we're not in a downtrend. So it's a sign of weakness for these buyers. And it's certainly, if I was buying down here and I saw this at the edge, see how I have these other power bars here, these purple ones? They show up by the time this orange bar is in. And if I see an orange bar way up here by a power bar or by another sign of aggression like this, I don't want to be long anymore. I'm expecting this low to get tested and then hopefully exhausting and getting back up here. So let's see what happens. Let's go one bar at a time. We get another orange bar, and then it exhausts underneath the low, right? It tests this midpoint, and it comes back with a star and a green candle. So that's pretty much par for trend day up, or at least open drive higher, where the big plays in the first couple minutes starts to go sideways, everybody starts to sell, and then everybody starts to buy again before it even gets near VWAP, right? Or before it even gets to the midpoint of the day. So normally the next expectation is that we're going to come up here and test the 3x VWAP line, and we just don't even get close to that, right? We put in a sign of aggression, a yellow speed bar, so suddenly a seller showed up here. Now here's what's interesting. One way to use these orange bars, is to draw the area of where they cover, and then watch for pivots in that same zone to the right. So this, for instance, would be a good example. If you were bearish and you saw these orange bars here and you're like, you know what, this high might be the high, and especially when it doesn't have a green dot on it, meaning that we got we got absorption of buy orders despite no excess. And like I said, if you don't know what that means, watch the earlier video I posted yesterday about the excess dots. But when you get an orange bar without a green dot, for me, that's a concern for sure. If you're bullish, I just don't expect to go very far. But then when we come back up and we run into that range and we see another sign of aggression, it's like your radar should be like blinking at you, being like, this does not look like trend day up. Why are we running into sellers who are hitting the bid quickly compared to earlier bars and what would be expected based on the current tempo in this range where they had an opportunity to sell before, almost as if we're trending down, right? Then we get a star down, more signs of aggression. So now what I should be thinking is, okay, I don't want to be buying a dip here because we're probably going sideways. And if I am going to buy a dip here, it's going to be only to scalp, but I should not be buying the dip expecting high of day. Doesn't mean it can't happen. It's just, this is not usually what you get when you get trend day up. So they do buy the dip, and then they put in another one, another sign of absorption of all these buy orders. Buy orders come up, and it came after a pink bar, and the pink bar means it basically, people pulled their sell orders, and that's the only reason it went up. So someone was buying actively here, and there were sellers waiting with limit orders up here. And as it approached, they just pulled their orders. And so the next market buy, hit here. That's not that aggressive if it immediately gets absorbed. So pink bar followed by orange bar, especially in this range of orange bars previously, right? This becomes a pivot. And so because this range was being watched, I actually caught this short. I just didn't hold it very long. Oh, that one didn't work. There must be another one. Like I said, the one I took went a little lower. So that one would have stopped. That was definitely a valid short signal. Got short at 55. It missed its target by 3 or 4 points. It should get 10 to 12 to 15 points here most of the time, and it just didn't get it. And that happens. It set up correctly. It was valid. Just too many buyers here. They absorbed in the other direction. I guess they did. Oh, you know what? I did not see this. They did have some buy absorption or some. They absorbed some sells here too, and came back with that green pivot. So now what you could do, because you've got another pivot, another absorption here, you can highlight both of these and expect this zone to be important later on. We don't really know. At this point, I'm thinking, okay, it's sideways. We are trading in balance. We're going to chop back and forth and hunt stops. So take out the low, take out the high. What's probably coming next is either take out this low or take out this high first. So there's, now, is there a trade here? That's a star and it's red. So if there's a star in this range, there is, with a power bar, you can short this. I did not take this one, but I could have. That is a valid short. And that one worked nicely. So that one worked. You just had to take it a second time. This one was valid. It just wasn't at the apex. It's always better to get a new high and then break down. This is always a better trade the second time. Always, because you took out some shorts, right? I've said this many times before that you want to be the second mouse. This was the first mouse here. This is the second mouse. This first mouse shorted when no one was stuck. There were no buyers stuck already, and everybody who's short is already in. They didn't get squeezed out, and now that all the shorts are out, the sells can work now because now they'll chase it lower. The sellers. So, okay, so we get a buy signal here with a divergent dot followed by a white triangle. And it makes sense to buy this if you think that we're in trend day up, which is suspicious at this point because we never came back and even touched this 3x line. So I didn't buy it, but I would understand why people would think that, okay, here's my opportunity to buy the dip on trend day up after open drive higher. It does make sense. Yeah, if I remember right, it does not work. And it just gets flushed, right? So this is our first sign that buy orders. Oh, and actually, you guys, this was a buy signal too. Dot white arrow was also a buy. I just didn't see it. It took out a low, came back with a dot, followed by a white triangle. Sorry, and that was a valid buy signal. Second mouse setup if you think it's balanced. This was the exact same thing. It just failed. And why did it fail? Probably because it ran into this resistance, right? Once this fails, you are almost certainly not in trend day up because this one was underneath a power bar. See that? You broke these power bars. You got underneath them. You didn't just break price. So what I mean by that, if you look at the yellow line where the volume is in the bar, when price came down and tested below this bar here, which has a purple power bar triangle on it, when price came down, it immediately bounced back up and volume was never put in below this low, which happened to be right on the midpoint of that VR level, or that voodoo range. So it immediately bounces back up, and that is exactly what you're looking for if you're trading balance. And then this one, your highest power bar is here. Let me draw this. So in this range, you have this power bar, which you could count, that's the high of day. And even the next one is here. And you never got a bullish bar with a POC above it. See, this is the last bullish bar, and all of the buy volume was here. By the time volume got up here, those buyers got trapped. Right? So that's what essentially makes this such a good short. And what makes this not such a good short. Because there's nobody trapped here. This one, there were buyers trapped there. So once I've broken underneath power bars with the yellow line, I now should assume that any bounce is going to run into resistance on the first test back. It may run into resistance here. it might also run into resistance at the power bar that it just got broken, like here. This would be a very, very obvious place for it to pivot, would be this purple VPOC line from the last 10 minutes, for instance. 14,260 would be a very, very common place for it to come back up, hit, and then reverse if you're bearish. So once you've broken these power bars with volume, you have to be ready to shift away from thinking open drive higher must be trend day up. So we're now not even half an hour into trading. And that's why I was wrong about this. I don't trade the first half hour. So this was not by the sell I took. It just looks a lot like it later on. But even at this point, half an hour in, if you were watching very closely and you noticed that we broke under this power bar and came back and rejected off of it, that right there was a sign that something's up. We're not continuing out higher without coming. We're probably going back to VWAP. So there's VWAP right there. And we're heading towards it. Puts in a little sideways motion. It's not really a buy signal. I do have a level there, but I don't know why it's there, so I'm going to delete it. Don't remember why I put it there. Might have been a pivot from earlier. That's not really a setup that I trade, so I'm just going to keep going. Okay, if you think you're in a bearish market, any of these red arrows can be shorted. This one, only if you're making lower highs, right? You don't want to short this one. I guess you could short these. If you were looking at this really tiny time frame, you could short these, right? But you'd have to put your stop above the pivot. And you'd just be trying to break this pivot. So they are scalps when you think you're in a downtrend. They work great when these rotations are bigger, right? So see how this one here continues lower. And then this one, there's another one here. This one should continue lower as well. Okay, and like I said, it's just a scalp. It's just trying to break the swing low, which usually has a dot on it. The green dots. This one technically does. It's just hard to see because it's got another symbol on it that I borrowed from Ed. But when it's got a green dot and then you get this and you're in a downtrend, that green dot becomes very vulnerable. And it's easy to, not easy, but it's possible to break it. The thing is once you do break it, you have to watch volume again, because if you can't get volume established below it, it's going to bounce right away. So you want to take some profit here and then hold a runner. Well, that's what I do anyway. So we got this big push down right through VWAP, right? We have a few other signs that we could sell here. This orange absorption is in a perfect spot at the apex of a retest. It's another short, right? If you didn't want to wait for the arrow, you could have gotten short here. These orange bars work beautifully when you are in a downtrend. The inverse of that, the green bars, work horribly to buy when you're in a downtrend, right? If you bought this, you got absolutely stuffed. Well, here's another one. Should you buy it? In my opinion, no. If you know you're in a downtrend at this point, you should not be buying anything until you establish some sideways at least. I'm not trying to be the aggressive trader that gets in at the low, even if I have a level there, right? This was like a previous VPOC and it traded into a voodoo range. I'm not just blindly buying this ever. It's too aggressive for my style. It's just not the way I trade. I want my trades to work a lot. I get tilted when I take trades that are low odds and miss trades that are high odds. It is one of the main sources of mistakes for me, is when I take trades I shouldn't be taking because they might work, but probably won't, and then get scared away from that trade that I know works most of the time. Like some of my setups that Simon has taught me are working 70 to 80% of the time. So, I don't need to take all of these little trades that are going to work less than 50% of the time. I just don't need to. It's unnecessary, and it's hard to break yourself of that habit of thinking green bar buy. And it's just, trading's just not that easy. And especially when sometimes it works. Like here, it gave you enough to get your risk off. And so if you took it, based on just the signal, or maybe based on the triangle coming after the dot or whatever, if you took a bullish signal here and it works, you train your brain to like trade counter trend. But the truth is that counter trend move was like maybe 10 points, 12, 15. Okay, 15 points. Enough to get my risk off. What are the chances that we're going to get a runner going for 50 points here? And that's what I think a lot of people, including me, sometimes forget to think about. What has to happen for that to occur is this needs to be the low. And we just broke VWAP and backside, like retested it from the back, right? Went beyond it, retested it, reoffered, and pushed lower. And you think we're just going to break right through that, like double bottom? Like maybe we might, but how often does that actually happen? 30%, 20%? That's the amount of time that your runner gets paid. Every other time your runner's stopping out for a loss and like zeroing out your 15 points or whatever that you made on that. So why risk that, which at best is 50%, let's say, when you could have taken this arrow, and this arrow, and you get, let's see, this one's at, let's say 30, and let's say that you covered like here at 11, 10, right? 20 points right there. This one, you know about the arrow at this bar here at like 14,200. That takes you down to here. Maybe you exit on the first sign of aggression, 14,170, 30 points. So you've already made 50 points plus, you know, on your runners. And then you get another opportunity to get in and you get risk off on another trade. So like, why trade counter trend when you have a trend established? And that's why I use the algo, you guys. It's because I don't get these signals when we are going in the opposite direction. See how there's no white arrows on the triangles? Nothing is telling me we're in a buy in a bull trend. These white arrows, white triangles without arrows, are opportunities to trap. So see, this white triangle gets trapped by the orange bar, and that creates a sell signal. An aggressive one, but a sell signal. This triangle followed by a yellow star is it a beautiful, beautiful high odds setup. And what's even more high odds is taking this range and selling the first test back into it. Let me just change this here. I don't think we get back up here. So let's just see if that happens. If we get back up there, it should reject. Anyway, rant finished, but yeah, don't be committed to counter trend trading just because you think that it's long, right? If you are getting signals that it's short, don't take longs. Wait. You can take longs later. You'll have a retest. You'll have plenty of time to set up the long when the low is in. You don't have to be the first one in. In fact, you don't want to be. You want to be at least the second mouse, right? Don't be the first one, especially counter trend. So I don't have a sell here. Sometimes it just doesn't set up for me, and that's okay. I'm just not aggressive enough. Some people would sell this. I just don't. It is a sign of aggression to the sell side, and the location's good. Oh, you could sell this. It's in here. So, by the way, this after 9 o'clock was the orange bar that I sold. I sold this one and got my runner off. I don't remember where, lower. But this is the orange bar I was looking at that I thought we were looking at before. This area, like I mentioned up higher, becomes a pivot. So if you weren't already short, I could actually have shorted there. I just didn't see that a minute ago. But this orange bar makes this a pivot. And especially when the green bar is in the same area. See how do I grab this? See how there's also a green bar here? And then an orange bar in the same range? That's like a guaranteed pivot. I'm not going to say guaranteed. Extremely high probability pivot. Either the next time it crosses or if it goes up above it and then retests it from above. I'm not blindly shorting that. I'm waiting for a sign of aggression to the sell side. Because sometimes it does just rip right through it. But then I'm looking for a sign of aggression to the buy side out of it. So just having this signal here slows me down a bit and says, okay, even if you miss this short, don't worry about it, because if you can get the next test back in and they show any aggression, you can take it. I was just already short here. And like I said, I don't always catch those, obviously. You're not going to catch every single trade. There were plenty of trades this afternoon that I completely missed. And like that's one of the reasons why I wanted to do this is I just wanted to see where my mental shit, because I knew we were short here. I just didn't think it would go that far. I covered and started looking for longs way too early, and I want to see why that is. And I imagine many of you are in the same boat. Thankfully, I still ended the day green because I had a good morning, but it could have been a lot better. I could tell. Okay, so we have this area was the previous POC. It acted as support earlier, acted as support here. Now it's acting as resistance, and you're getting some aggression. So if we get a red triangle following this, that's another short. There's the red triangle. It does not have an arrow on it, which is unusual. Look, this one didn't either, right? This one had an arrow on it telling me we're still in a bear trend. This one did not. So now the algo, the TradeNPerform algo, is hinting that we might be going sideways. There's no white arrow, but there's also no red arrow. So it's like it has not committed to a direction. And like I said, I can't really share what all these mean. I don't know what most of them mean, but I will tell you a lot of it has to do with like, it's all reading order flow off the footprint. So it might be something to do with speed or distance or volume or anything else you can find on the footprint, right? Bid versus ask, all of that is what it's looking at. So, I mean, if we looked at the footprint, I need the NQ footprint. That is the ES footprint. So, I mean, if we look at the footprint, I can point to this 14151 and you can see it. Is it that one? Yeah. So it's this right here. 14151. Yeah. To 160. So that's what we're looking at there. So like I said, this one here would technically be a short, but there were already signs that maybe this downtrend is losing steam, right? But it is a valid short and it's okay to take. I don't remember if I did. I probably did. I'd have to check. Okay, nothing there. That's not what you want to see. This needs to get beat right away, otherwise it's gonna stop. Okay, so the short stops. What do you know, right? When the arrow stops showing up, it starts going sideways, right? So even though there wasn't a clear buy signal there that I can see on this time frame, there might have been one on another one. One way or another, we trade up and we break a power bar with volume, right? The yellow line got above this high. So now we should expect any retest into here should get bought if we're bullish. Okay. Oh, it just like explodes. Cool. Ah, interesting. We get another sell signal. This is occurring in this expected pivot area, right? We already got one response. This is the second test. With these pivots, the second test is less relevant than the first one. The first one rejects a hell of a lot. The second one does not always reject. And there's VWAP there. So I'd probably just wait, but you could be aggressive and short here and it wouldn't be wrong. But I probably don't. Now, we did put in a green one, interestingly. So see how we got it right after orange? We got green. So now this pivot is like rejuvenated and we can stretch it. So we can go from here. Because now we have a new reason to look at this as a future pivot. And then we get an orange bar. I don't know if you can see it because the VR levels are kind of in the way. But this is an orange bar here. And it traded above the previous orange bar and came right back in. This is a much better short than this one. Much better. Second mouse. Much better short. I actually think I took that one too. That was a good short. I should be taking every one of those. There's no reason not to. That's a perfect short. Now, what I'm surprised about, here's the red arrow showing up again, right? So if you didn't see this, you'd have the red arrow to tell you we're back into sell mode. What's funny is that we didn't get one here, right? Since we got the red arrow, the star and the green bar, all of these bullish signs are just opportunities to trap buyers. You can't, if you're using signals, whether or not it's my algo or Simon's algo or your own signals or indicators, and you're seeing something and you're immediately just like reacting to it, like, oh, it's green, I should buy it. Like change the indicator, right? Like make it yellow or something that you don't get an emotional response to, because there is no good reason to buy this. We are definitely we're under VWAP, right? We've got all of this sell momentum, and we've now got the arrows turning back on. So at this point, there's no reason to think that the low is in, really. Unless there's like a location reason. I'm just not looking at the chart at the moment. Just taking it rotation by rotation. But this alone is not a buy signal. It's just a sign of aggression. And aggression can be thwarted if there's momentum. And so in this case, I'm waiting for the yellow star to take out the white star. I'd be much more interested in shorting this than buying this. And that's sometimes hard to do, but that's the valid move. It doesn't always work, but that's what you're supposed to do. Okay, so it does go lower. Look how we get a green, hunter green absorption bar that immediately gets busted, right? So further confirmation that we're probably not bullish. But then we put in another one. And I've been studying this. When you get one here and then you make like a little S and you get a second one right away, oftentimes this entire range becomes a pivot in the future. But I have not yet figured out if there's any way to tell which direction that pivot's going to work. But yeah, something to watch for. So yeah, so see how this green one acts as a pivot right here, right? But now we have another one to contend with. We did get the arrow. We did get the arrow to short here. We have another pivot to contend with. And how does it beat it? The market beats it by absorbing buyers with an orange one. So this is yet another sell, right? So look at all these opportunities to short if you weren't scared about shorting into low a day. I had a hard time with that today. I did not want to be the one who shorted the low of the day. Even though some of these signals, like this one, was in perfect location. I did take this one. There was one, I don't remember. Some of these were right where they needed to be. And I guess we're still at 9:45, so maybe I haven't gotten there yet. But eventually, I got nervous about continuing to push this trend. I guess I should have pulled that up and seen when I actually got bullish. But I can't imagine it would have been here. But I tried to find a low and unsuccessfully and stopped shorting because I thought we were just too far, which is almost never a good place to be. So like I said, this is a short right into that old VPOC. This absorption candle is a short right off of this location here. So green one followed by orange one. We can mark this off if we return to this zone here. We can expect a pivot. Hopefully this is starting to make a little bit of sense. It's just a process, you guys. Like I'm just going through one step at a time. Did we break a power bar? Yes, bearish. Do we have a red arrow? Yes, bearish. Get in short if you see another one. Are we getting white arrows on our triangles? No. Then try to trap triangles with stars like this. Okay, it's just a process, right? It takes a long time to learn it because there's so many damn signals. But keep in mind, you don't have to have them all. You can start with just one or two and just look for those. Maybe you get 5 trades all day, but most of them work. Once you have, I've got about like maybe 9 now that I use, like combinations of signals. And like I can catch almost all of these if I'm fast enough. Continue lower. Clearly we're bearish now. We're coming into Wednesday's RTH POC. Via volume point of control. That usually gets tested, and if we're bullish, it usually acts as support when you approach it from a gap up. Okay, yeah, this is volume profiling, like classic Dalton theory. If you don't know that stuff, you should really learn it. It's super helpful. But the basic idea here is if you gap up like we have, and you drop, usually, hopefully with low volume and low aggression, not like this, but with low aggression, low volume, into this area, you can expect buyers to participate here because it's the place where you had the most volume the previous session. So if they were active then, they should be active now. When it doesn't hold, you need to pay attention, okay? Okay, so again, these stars are just for trapping at this point. I'm not looking for buyers here. I mean, I'm not looking to be a buyer here. I'm looking for buyers to trap because everything says short. My last all these pivots are short. So, and I've broken a power bar, and I'm having trouble breaking power bars to the upside. This is the last one I broke to the upside. This power bar here. Here, I didn't talk about this. So this is something called a complex pullback. So you're in a bear trend. You make a lower low. You make a high. I'm sorry. Yeah, you make a lower high, then a higher low, and a higher high. Everybody gets long here at the breakout. In my opinion, that's not very. The expected value on that is not that good unless you have some other reason to do it because of all of this sell pressure. And I might have alluded to that before, but just to be clear, this to me is just a complex pullback in the larger time frame, which says lower. What confirms that that's not the case is when we come back here and bounce and we can't establish volume lower than this low. This little bounce does not count for me. I need it to break a power bar like this and then come back in and hold it. That is what a low looks like to me. I don't care about these. I don't want it. I don't have a setup to buy this, and I don't need one. I don't care about it. I would rather get the one that sets up here when it holds on like the next higher low. I don't need to catch this one, right? I can wait until these stop showing up and these start holding, and then I can start looking for longs, and I'll have plenty of opportunities. It's not easy to not take it, but if you have a process that says that's not a setup, you won't. So yeah, this is just a complex pullback. It's confusing. I remember it throwing me off a little bit at the time, hoping that we'd go higher. And then when it doesn't, you just have to accept that you can keep going much further than you think. Okay, we trade into the point of control and get some absorption of sellers there. That makes a lot of sense. This is probably the first one I bought. That would be a valid buy for me. But the I don't really love it because I don't have any, just like I was saying, we haven't actually broken a power bar to the upside. So there's really not a great reason to buy this other than I like the location. So I'm pretty sure I did buy this or something similar to it. If it happens again, I bought the second one. And I might have gotten risk off, but I don't think it went anywhere. And I was irritated. Yeah. Yep. So it might have been this, but I bought one of these. Hopefully not both of them. And what I did not anticipate is that this would just roll over. And I should have expected that. That'd be normal for this just to roll over here. And like that, right? So, like I said, I can't remember which one of these I bought, but my thinking was, I think it might have been this one. Thinking that it made a low, did it break this power bar here? If it's this one, then this one would be the better of the two. I hope that's the one I took. Yeah, so this volume point of control line here on an up bar, and this one as well, broke above the previous power bar. So when you get a pullback that holds, if I have any reason to think that this area is support, which I did, I'm going to buy it. And it did get 15 points or whatever, which is fine. It's just the runner went nowhere. And that happens. And so that's not a mistake, right? This one's not great. It's too aggressive for me. I don't have a good reason to buy this. But when that same range, that green candle range holds, and you get another sign of aggression, and that range is also like a previous VPOC or another reason why you might like it, I'm going to take it, especially when the red arrows stop showing up on these triangles and we actually got behind a power bar. Well, I guess at this point we did not get behind a power bar, but we got, yeah. So this one was too aggressive. This one was fine. But what I did not expect was that we would break above here and then just roll one more time. I thought we were done. And I let myself get basically biased, thinking like, well, why would they go all the way down here and not bounce unless they're going to go to the low of the day? And then my thinking was, well, worst case scenario, which is not true, we'll go to the low of day and we'll bounce. So I didn't want to be selling here, even though I probably should have, because there was no reason. Once you get this rollover, maybe you don't catch this one, right? Maybe you don't catch that one. But once they get through this VPOC, like this actually, I guess it hangs out here for a while. Eventually, it absorbs all the buying. You get a perfect setup, right? Orange candle above a previous power bar. They probed above it and just sold it. They absorbed all that buying, and a seller came back into the market. And this one was a star, so a seller could have been trapped here, yet we let them out. And like I said in the beginning of the video, when you see that kind of sign, I don't care what you use to find it, but when you find a trapped buyer or seller and the market doesn't take advantage of that, they just like trade back to their level and just reverse. Like they did something right. They were just early. They were probably correct. The price took him out, and now his plan is going to work. So be the second mouse here, like almost every time. I don't think I took it because of this. All of this support in the previous VPOC just like had me biased that this was clearly the low. And at first I was like, well, these green candles are often the low, especially when there's no doubt on it. So this is probably the low. And then when this bounced, I'm like, oh, that's clearly that's the low. Makes perfect sense. We're probably going higher. I should buy a retest, right? I think I might have even bought this because this is star back into star. I think I actually got this one too. And it paid me. But I'm pretty sure I bought this. And I did not get rid of my runner here until quite a bit later, that I'm like, oh my God, we're not bouncing. Like, this is not what I expected. And what I should have done is taken my 15 points, and then when I get a sell signal here, I should have exited the runner and flipped short, because this is a short and it's probably going to work. Yeah. Okay. Now we get another green bar, and we don't know which way that's going to pivot, but this should become a pivot. So when we fall through it with an arrow, see that? That is clear evidence that if price comes back here and puts in aggression to the downside anywhere around 14.080, I need to be shorting. And I didn't. Right there. I need to be taking this every time. I know this creates pivots. We broke below it on the first test. That shouldn't happen if it's bullish. We come back and it becomes resistance. Like clearly it's bearish. And this is an area that people were buying. Now I have a sign to sell, and I need to just react to that. And I bet you this one worked. Yeah. So even if you missed this one, you had another one here, which, we retested the VPOC from below. Like that looks so easy, right? So simple. Just sell the damn red arrows, right? Like, so easy. But in reality, I could not switch back to being short because I had done so well coming down to the VPOC. And in my mind, we were coming to VPOC and we were going to bounce. Otherwise, we're going to the low a day, or maybe 1400, and we're going to bounce. And by the time I got this, I'm just like, I was not committed to the short side. Thankfully, I wasn't buying anything. But when I get these green candles and they break right through them and they come back and create pivots, look at this is the exact same thing. Breaks over it, comes right back, can't get over the open even. Like this star, this red candle, even this, it's not too late to sell here. And in my mind, I was like, best case scenario, I get 30 points here. We bounce at 1400 or 14,000. And that's just not what happened. Okay, here's another one. Like I said, you need to know which direction the market's going before you even think about taking signals, right? You can't, if you buy these green candles, oh my God, you are toast in a downtrend, right? Or these green dots, for instance. You'll get like 5 points and they get totally murdered. But if you wait for them to get beat and then take a retest, or wait for aggression to get through them like a arrow or a star, I mean, even this star coming right into it, like that should not be happening. Triangle up, star down, right there is like an A+++ short. And if it comes back to this range, I need to be selling it again, or adding if it happens right away. And it's like, I'm just kind of frustrated with myself that I missed these. I realize it's just one day, but all of the signs were here to stay short. And just because I took one or two longs that worked, my brain immediately went to let's find the low. And we must be getting close. And then every time we went through another like this psychological level, I was like, well, there goes 14,000. I'm sure they're just going to bounce at the next voodoo range level. And then when that goes, I talked myself out of it again and didn't short that. And once again, we get another short signal, right? We are not breaking power bars to the upside. This is not bullish. Even if you think this looks like a double bottom somehow, I don't think so. But let's say you did, and you had like some special line here that you really liked. Like, you can't just blindly buy it until you see aggression on the sell side stop. And like, look at this. We're just now getting back, or we're underneath the 3x volume. I'm sorry, the 3x VWAP line. We're underneath it now. There is no reason to be looking long here. Once we get under this orange line, just like when we were above it early on, once you get below it, I cannot buy. I can short a lot. Look at that. It's like one after another, these are paying 30 points over and over and over again. Could have been like a best day of my month. There's another one that I missed. Another one, right? And like, yeah, you can tell that we're getting a little bit thin here. See how they're not extending like they used to? So now I'm thinking one of these is going to end up being a pivot. I don't know which one. Is it going to be this one? Is it going to be this one? So let's, or here's a green one, right? So usually it's better if you have two of them. Let's mark this off. Let's see if we get aggression there. We don't know which one it is. Could be this one. Then we have this future pivot. If it gets up here, it's probably not going to get any higher on the first test. Somewhere around here I bought. Hold on, let me see if I can figure it out from the chart. 70, 13, 9. Nope, not here. This was underneath yesterday's low, and I was expecting a buy, and I did not get set up. I have that written down. Okay, so that was a sell. There's no arrow here. This is star into star. This is yet another short, and it's in this pivot area. See that? It's in this gray box, and it's a sign of aggression to the sell side. Yet another short. Again, I don't know if it works, but yeah, it looks like it worked. Good enough. But the what's it called? The tempo is clearly slowing down. You're not, or maybe not tempo, but like the like extensions aren't getting as much momentum, as much range every time. So it would make sense to expect some sort of a retracement. But until we get volume above power bar on a bar that doesn't close lower, I shouldn't be buying it. Plus we're below the 3x VWAP. So there's no reason to buy this. Even if you get scalps out of it, like I can sell that too. It's still not too late to sell. Doesn't do much, but it's a valid short. Okay, that one clearly, that's like the first one that stops, right? Like in a long time, first one that actually stopped. And it makes sense. It's been going on for a long time. Is this a buy signal? Yeah, speed bar into speed bar. I wouldn't have taken it because we're underneath 3x volume. We've now cleared a speed bar to the upside, and we've cleared 3x VWAP. Sorry, not volume, VWAP. So if we can get a bounce off of there, then a buy would be sensible. And honestly, I think I might have taken this. I don't love it, but I think I took that. And it failed. Yeah, it's going to fail. So it starts going sideways. You can see just buyers have no interest whatsoever. My thinking here was we crossed the 3x VWAP line. We've slowed down on the sell side. It's like lunchtime, and there's a good chance that we at least do some sideways. So why don't I just start trading the edges here? But the problem is the edge is underneath the 3x VWAP line, and I didn't. So what I should have done is continue to short up here, but not shorted down here. That's what I should have done. And then if I wanted to buy, it should have been underneath the lows. But instead I bought one of these green bars and it did not work. And by the time I get an orange one, I need to know in this environment, that orange bar, especially when it's followed by a red arrow, I cannot hold long there no matter what. Now that, like I said, that one, now the arrows are starting to get stopped. That's the second one in a row that got stopped. So something seems to be changing when the algo says, I think you're, oh, and we got a white arrow here. See that? Those are the first white arrows. So when you have both of them, it's sideways. Like I said, I'm just not paying enough attention. If you see this, when white arrow, red arrow, white arrow, red arrow, this is sideways balance. So I should not be taking the arrows. We're not trending. It's not this, right? The algo doesn't know the difference. It's saying if you're trending, you can sell. Well, we're not. We're not trending here. We're balanced. And I have confirmation of that once I've gotten both of these. The first one can still work sometimes. The second one usually does not. And the third one usually doesn't because you're in balance now. So like I said, what I should be doing is waiting until I break with price up here and then get a sell signal and sell this. That's the sell. Yep. Makes perfect sense. Hopefully people are still following along. Like I said, it's just a matter of shifting your strategy. Now, keep in mind, you don't have to trade both, right? Some people are like, I'm just going to trade the trend. I'm not going to even mess around with having to think about whether or not there's someone stopped out and, what strategy should I be trading here? Like, then just know when your one strategy works and just trade that. But I've been doing this for long enough that I should be able to tell fast enough and switch. I have tools to trade every market more or less, unless it's so fast that I can't process it. In that case, I can't be trading. But if I can process what's happening, I've got setups that will get me short when it's balanced and get me long when it's balanced. Like this speed bar could technically get you long, and this triangle with this triangle here could get you long. I'm sorry, triangle. The star here, or the triangle actually would work too. But the star here for sure is a short. Wow, it's been a long day. This star is a short up here, and this speed bar would be a long down here because you're thinking about this like a balanced market. What I was not prepared for was for this balance to go into an even bigger sell momentum state than compared to what we just came out of. I was way too confident that the next step here is balance, a test below exhaustion and retracement, at least somewhat. And that was not based on anything technical. It was based on my expectations, maybe my bias because I had some call options. That might have been part of it. It may have been just because of what kind of price action we've been getting lately, like with two-way price action, and a lot of like whippy, choppy markets. I'm not sure. One way or another, in my brain, all I could think about during this sideways was I don't want to short the low, which shouldn't really matter here because I'm shorting above a pivot in balance. So this short should be just fine. And when it takes you all the way down here, even better. And like I said, what I need to remember is that when that happens, especially when you've had all this momentum from before to the point where you're below the 3x VWAP line, don't get bullish. So now we're back into trend, right? We're back underneath the negative 3x VWAP line. You get a sell signal here and a sell signal here. We're right back to doing what we did before, and I missed it. And I got pissed. I was frustrated with myself that I wasn't, because I figured it out eventually. It unfortunately took me, I think it was 90, it was right here that I was relatively confident that this bounce here was like the beginning, and the reason was because we had exhausted underneath and the location made sense to me. I had other reasons to think, like location wise, I had pivots and the voodoo range levels, thinking that if it bounces here, it could retrace. While that is true, I need to remember that I need to look at the technicals and say, at this point, bulls haven't done anything. Nothing to prove any trust. Most of the white arrows, for instance, got stopped. If you bought every white triangle, you get stopped all day. To think that this star or this triangle or this star or this triangle is going to be different, it's insane, right? Like that doesn't make sense. But like I said, even though I had all the evidence that we should be still shorting, my fear of being the one who shorted and got totally ruined, even though it's just a stop, right? I'm using hard stops in a liquid market. Like worst case scenario, maybe I get like 2 ticks of what's it called? Of slippage, maybe. So I need to get over myself about worrying that I'm gonna make, like, as if any bad decision is worse than another. If the consequences of the bad decision is just a stop, 12 points, 15 points, whatever, I should be only taking those stops when I have a chance to get a nice extension. I shouldn't be worrying about whether or not they're, the worst place to sell on the chart, like the low of day, right? This was just so hard to sell because low of day was here and we had just taken out low of day here. But the truth is this is just signing momentum. And I have signals blaring at me, like so obvious, saying this is bearish and you should be short, and yet I ignored them. I knew better than to buy it, but I was prepared for that bounce that just did not come, and I unfortunately didn't realize it for a while. It wasn't until so this is a valid buy signal, but it's in the wrong place. It's too far underneath the 3x VWAP line to expect anything spectacular, right? You might get 15 points of it. You're not going to get 50 more or less. This one does give you 50, but I don't usually buy those. Actually, that was a pretty intense bounce. You broke a power bar. Okay, so this is probably where I started to buy. I thought it was this one. It's this one. Yeah, it's this. This was the one that faked me out. Okay, I feel a little bit better. Because this one's bullshit, right? Completely under the 3x VWAP line, short signals all day. Like, that's bullshit. There's no way I should be getting tricked by that. I see now why I got tricked by this. We got above a power bar with bullish volume. We established a bullish signal that played out for 50 points. So it makes sense that this is the low. And like I said, my next move was, well, we've already hit the low, so ignore this perfect short signal right back into a pivot. I mean, it doesn't get any more perfect than this. Look at that. Like that, if it's bearish, that's a perfect place to sell it. And if I would have been bold enough to be buying all these dips, I better be selling that. Because you can't expect it to do, you shouldn't expect 50 points. When it gives you 50, you got to get rid of it. But I should be selling there again, and I was not. I was thinking, I just hope we get a retrace so I can buy this before it goes to high of day. And so we get a pivot. So that first orange one fails, and then it prints again. Very often the best trade of the day. That usually works. Like, and when I say best, I don't mean like the longest. I mean highest win rate is when something fails and then it comes right back and does it again. It's that second time it's going to work a whole lot more than this one, like 4 or 5 times as often. Okay, so where did I long? Shouldn't be long yet. So you have to keep in mind this pivot that these orange and green arrows made. We got under it. So right now the expectation should be this is going to act as resistance. So even if you have a valid long here, you have no risk reward. It gets right through it. So shows what I know. Sometimes that just does not hold. It goes over a power bar. So now we've broken this power bar to the long side and we've broken this power bar to the long side. And then we put in another sell signal. And I'm probably not selling this thinking we're going to bounce. That rarely works very well now because we've now broken another, like, so here's the difference. It's not just that it's another orange bar. It's that you have to look at what happened in between them, right? This orange bar means that we absorb buyers. They let that energy out and then move back up into that area, breaking over it with volume. This is not so bearish. But when we make one and they immediately get like beat, we get behind it immediately, and yet they absorb it right away before this let out any energy. Yeah, this one is going to let out energy more often than not. This one probably does not let out energy as often. Or if it does, probably not as severely. And I could be wrong here. That one let off plenty of energy. So, like I said, I'll just have to, oh wow, it just kept going. So I'll have to re-examine that because that's interesting. What I would expect to happen is that it would come back to one of these power bars that got broken, like this one, and then it would bounce here. That's what you would expect. And what happened this time is they just ripped right through it because there were just no buyers. Now, thankfully, I didn't get a buy signal here. And then the other power bar we broke was this one. So this zone would be the other place to expect some buyers to defend. And in that case, we did get a defense here. And I'm pretty sure I took this long because it's a star and a speed bar that traded underneath a power bar without putting any bearish volume below it and came back with aggression. So 90% sure I take that because we just broke a power bar to the upside. And we did not take out a power bar with volume to the downside. So like this is a valid long and it just fails. So I was frustrated about it at the time, but to be honest, it's just not that bad. You can actually re-enter it here on the next star down here. This star comes right back into this star's range and this range. It's not as high. It's similar to this, right? If this one didn't work, this one should. If it doesn't, something's definitely up. And it just doesn't work, right? It gets 10, no, not even 10 points, maybe 10 points, and just gets rejected at the voodoo range level. That is what happens during trend down, right? The voodoo range levels become like almost like a wall. Once you trade under it, you try to probe back above it. They don't let you back out, right? They just stand in the way. So when I see this at a voodoo range level, when on a setup that should work a lot, if it's bullish or even sideways, it should work. When it doesn't work, I need to immediately shift away from that bias. And I didn't do that. I thought, oh, I got stopped. No big deal. They'll set up again, right? And then I missed this one because that's not a great setup. Although the star is okay. We've got green bar and then a pullback into that range with the star. That's not a bad setup at all. But I'd be surprised. Oh, and actually we've got dot triangle too. So this is a fine place to long. I rarely take more than 2 tries in the same area. So I know I took at least 2 of these. I don't exactly remember which one. I didn't realize it set up 3 times. But like one of these is bound to work. I just don't take it 3 times. Because when it doesn't work 2 times, that third one, like when that doesn't work, I go on tilt. So I just don't take it a 3rd time. Anyway, we do not have well, unless you thought it was bearish, and I guess at this point you would because you got underneath the power bar with volume, and then you came back up and did you test that power? Yeah, you tested that, right? You tested back into a pivot. And in fact, it's the same pivot here again. And then you got a sign that we might be trending down, which is that arrow. And it just like liquidates. Now we have another pivot, green followed by orange. Green immediately followed by orange in a downtrend is a beautiful short, usually. And if you don't get it, you can usually sell the reoffer. Yeah, look at that. So if you see this, you're using the algo. Anything in this range can be sold. And if you get a triangle after it, you can sell that too. I didn't because I was still kind of like licking my wounds from getting stopped on the long. and like just didn't know what to make of this. And I knew that there was a potential that the next point we're going is Sunday lows. I even said it on Twitter. If this doesn't hold, next target is Sunday lows. So I should have been just ready to take these short and hold a runner all the way to the low. Like if I was just trading what I see, that's what I'd do. And I'd have a great day. Instead, I made like $50 today, which is super frustrating. And I realized it could have been a hell of a lot worse. But like I said, all of these setups, missing all of these setups, just because I wasn't willing to be aggressive enough when I had reason to believe it was going to go lower is frustrating. But notice once again, the green bars are not producing any bounce. And the only way you can really use them is waiting for a pullback into them to sell. And it doesn't even give you that pullback after one bar. Like one bar pulls back and just immediately drops. One bar pulls back, immediately drops. Like that. I'm surprised we don't have arrows on those triangles, because that's really bearish. So this is nothing. Like, again, you can't just buy signs of aggression, especially when they have green dots on them. There's a good sign that all that is profit taking. They're just being aggressive because they're hitting the market, or they're hitting the market buy button because they're like scared that they're shorting low a day. I probably do the same thing. It's hard, right? It's hard to just keep shorting. Like, but look at how successful it is. Now you're underneath the 3x VWAP again. You're definitely should not be thinking long. And thankfully my rules keep me from longing down here, because I was hoping to get back up there. I just didn't want to short. So I just kind of like threw my hands up in the air at this point. It was like, well, longs are clearly not going to work. I'm too scared to short down here because I have no idea when they're going to rip it back up. But eventually it's going to bounce, was my thinking. Which is just kind of like not very effective. Notice they bounced right off of the voodoo range level with volume and then absorbed that. Like, I'd love to buy that if it wasn't such a huge downtrend that we were underneath the 3x VWAP line. That would be beautiful in a sideways market or a bullish market to see that. But here, you just have to ignore it, because it's probably, I mean, it does work for what? 25 points. So I'm not, it's not that it's not a valid setup. It's just not a setup I'm willing to take, because I have to risk 15 to take it. And the chances that I get more than 15 are pretty low. Sometimes you get 25 to 50, but it's not often. Certainly not 60 or 70% of the time. And I'm not going to give away my gains for a 30, 40, 50% chance that I might get an extension. Unless I'm just going to scalp it for 10 or 20 points and be done with the day, and I just feel aggressive, and I guess that's okay, but I hate it because I'm underneath this line, and I just don't have, unless, like I said, I'd have to have room to trade back to the line as my target. That is something that maybe I would do if we were so bearish that I think, okay, maybe we can at least come back and tag this, and I've got a strong signal at location here. And it's like, if we can at least tag this, maybe I can just get a couple points here. But man, we better be moving like slowly or something. Like, I've got to have a reason to do that, because that is not my style. Some people definitely trade like that, and they want to take every 10-point opportunity, and that's fine if you can do that. I don't have the endurance to be looking for that. I just have to know once it gets under here, I'm just not going to long until the conditions change. In the same way that a fisherman just stops fishing when it starts to storm. I just don't want to get electrocuted. It's not worth it. So here too, this looks like a pretty good long, because you're in this pivot range. This absorption range again becomes a pivot, and you get a sign of aggression here. So if it wasn't a better spot, I'd like it, but it's still beyond the 3x VWAP line, so I don't take it. And I don't take it because it usually doesn't work. And this time it does get a nice little bounce. You just had to hold on for dear life, and it bounces there again. That's usually how it works. This one I can take, right? I got out of the VWAP. I got really back inside of the VWAP to 3x VWAP back in here. I'm outside of that negative 3x VWAP, and I got to pull back into a location. And like I said, I liked this location, but I couldn't take it. I'm at that same exact location, and now I'm above the 3x VWAP line. I'm okay with buying this. I don't think there's anything wrong with that, because I'm thinking, okay, now we're sideways, and I can get above this high. So my target should be here, above that. And then what I should expect is they try to take this low out, fail, and bounce, or they take the low out. Because it's either sideways, bullish, or bearish. It's nothing else. So if it hits the voodoo range, oh, it does. Comes right back up and taps the voodoo range. I wish I would have taken that. I see every reason to do it. Like I said, once it got under here, I just threw my hands up in the air and said, I'm done. Which, like, I just didn't want to tilt at that point. I was like, look, I'm green just barely, but I'm green. Like, why even mess around with it? And there were more opportunities in the afternoon than I expected. So that has great location. I would not have been able to short it as far as I can tell. Oh, it's star into star. You have this star bar in the same range as this one. It's aggressive, but you could technically do it. I should say I could do it. You do what you want. I could technically take it. I did not. The location's perfect. It's above a power bar, so it's aggressive. But if you look at what's happening, like it shouldn't be a surprise that on an opportunity to short from higher that sellers come in and get involved again. Again, I'm surprised not to see the arrows here, because I probably would have taken that, because those are really reliable when they do show up. They're just not showing up here. The algo does what the algo does. In this case, it just didn't signal that. And there's no longs here, that's for sure. There's not a single long anywhere. And now I'd hope that we bounce off the VWAP line, 3x VWAP line. But look, we're just putting in more orange pivots. See this? Just another one. And what happens? Immediately sell. Like this, you can sell this. It's low of day, but that is sellable because it's beyond that 3x VWAP line. That can extend. Look at that. That can keep going. Right? If you got in at, let's say 735, like even if you were a little late to it, you got it, because you don't know that these signals are definitely going to be there until this bar. So let's say you got in right here at 35, at the end of this bar. You waited, you're like, oh, it's the low of day, and then you mark it in. You do take a little heat, but you never get anywhere near your stop, or my stop would be above this. And then you get an immediate extension of like 30 points. Like, that's pretty cool for shorting low of day. That's all right. All right, so we're under 3x, negative 3x VWAP again. Like I said, it's just, and we've broken a power bar. I mean, we haven't seen a power bar for a long time, right? There's no purple triangles up here. The last one we broke was way back here. So some sort of a retrace is probably coming, but I have to have a setup to take it. I don't have a setup here yet. I'm still below the 3x VWAP line. Okay, so I marked this for a reason, I'm sure. That's probably a long. There's no star here. I don't know why I marked that. That's not a long as far as I can tell. Volume went underneath the 3x VWAP line. I don't know why I marked it. Maybe it was just a bounce. I guess you could say that it's pivoting in this zone, but it's pretty aggressive if you want to buy here at all. Yeah, it doesn't work. Oh, well, maybe it does. Okay, this is a better long because it's above the VWAP line and it's star back into star. This one's okay. This triangle with the arrow on it is actually okay if you think you're bullish. And like I said, the reason to be bullish here is because you haven't had a power bar that got broken since here. So your target is back here at 90, you'd think, if bulls have any interest whatsoever in taking this back higher. Here's another one, triangle back, or star back into star, but there's no arrow here on the triangle. Thinking too fast, way ahead of myself. You're also butting up against this three-day volume range, volume area low. That's potentially going to be a problem, that there's lots of sell volume up there. Oh, or not. Maybe just break right through it like it doesn't exist. I guess that's the second test. Second test is always easier to break than the first one. Okay, so did it get back to the power bar that got broken? No. And is this a sell? Only way this is a sell is if it got back into this range, and it does not. So the first chance you could sell would be on this triangle if it had an arrow on it. I don't believe it does. Nope. This is the first chance to sell right here. Star into star with an arrow. Sell down to low day. So that right there, you'd get in here. Again, it's late. I wouldn't probably be trading this, but 47 to, I mean, that's almost 50 points. into the end of the day. Make a new low, you break all these power bars. So now this is your new target, long. So you better not be getting long because it's just going to roll over. Or maybe it just rips right through it. That happens too. You did break this power bar. So they're probably trying to get back here. That makes sense. They broke like all those at once. That was a really big extension. There's another sell signal. Again, we have not broken a power bar to the upside. No swing highs have been broken, right? Oops. Got rid of the wrong one. You got an orange candle here. So they absorbed buyers. Probably going to go lower, especially since that's the second of, you got an orange one here that immediately got beat, and they put in another orange one. That's going to get an extension. Probably the low day. Yep. Okay. The only way I can buy this is if it comes all the way back into this range of this star. So I could technically take it on the triangle, but I'd like it to have an arrow, and it's not. So I'm probably not buying that. It's just too aggressive for me. It works well, because it's the end of the day, most likely. I'm just not taking it. That got back up to this level here, which is associated with this power bar. If we get a sell signal here, not really. That's why. There's a sell signal right there, right? Orange bar in an orange. So here's the orange bar from over here. This range becomes sellable if it's still bearish or sideways, as long as you can get another sign of aggression, and you get that right there. And you get another red arrow, another opportunity to sell. Okay, absorbs, bounces back. This one is a buy. Again, I'm not trading it this time. Do you see how that aligns? Hopefully this is starting to make a little bit of sense. We're now in a sideways market, right? So I've adjusted my strategy from only selling with the trend to buying below lows or below power bars, or as long as I come back with aggression, as well as selling above it, right? So I can sell this one because I tested above. I sell this, we test below it, and I can buy that. It doesn't mean it's going to work. It's just, that's just the way you trade it. But then when it reverses like that, see how you immediately get the orange one? You have to flip. Yeah, you have to flip there. Just because of where it's aligning with that. See, you've got two pivots here, right? So your choices are, you can say, well, I'm not going to buy this because my risk reward is poor, and chances are we're not going to get to this pivot. That's fine. I don't mind that at all. I just have seen it a lot come back up and take out the high and then roll over. But I'm not expecting a huge retracement here. I'm just scalping these. And the first sign that this is not working, which happens to be at like break even, I'm just flipping and like, okay, well, the bulls don't want it, and the bears are showing aggression. The bears have been working all day. So let's just take that, right? So that's, if you don't want to be flipping back and forth, don't trade sideways markets, because that's all that is flipping back and forth. Okay, so we get absorption. Again, if you still think this is sideways, then you'd want to look at this range for the future on a pullback. If it just goes, it just goes, and it just goes. So you just never get a chance to come back. It might be doing it right now. Let me get, oh, look, this pivot worked after hours. This one. And again, these pivots are made from the orange and green bars. So here's the orange bar. There's another one here. Follow that same range to the right. And when you get any sign of seller aggression, especially another orange bar, but really any sign of seller aggression, even like a star that touches it, you can scalp it or sell it and hold it with runners if it is bearish. Let's see. So that is the end. I'm honestly doing this for my own good, because I need to learn a lot about how to use the algo better and how to stay unbiased. But the truth is that if you just follow the signals and you know your setups, the algo will keep you out of trouble. The hard part is when you try to layer trend trading with balance trading. You can make a lot of mistakes when it comes to shifting which strategy to take. And mentally, that can be really difficult, because it would have been fine if I just said, I don't want to buy until I find a valid long entry in a sideways market or a bullish market. that would be fine. I only bought this market maybe 4 times today, and 3 of those worked for 15 points. So it's not like it was those were bad decisions. The problem is that I only shorted like 3 of them, and I had like 30 opportunities to short. And once I was through those first 2 hours and saw it sell so hard, I just gave up on that strategy, even though it started to work again in the afternoon. So that was where the error came in. They weren't execution errors today; they were analysis errors, not being too biased and not flipping between my strategies effectively. And so, if that continues to be a problem for me, the solution to that is to limit what trades you take, because it means that your system is too cumbersome, or that the price action is not fitting your process. It might be too fast, it might be too aggressive, it might be too one-sided. So the solution may just be stop trading imbalance. Just step away and wait for those arrows to start working again, miss the first one and take the second one, and the third one, and the fourth one, and the fifth one, all in one direction, until we get back to balancing more often, and then I can try both of them